Well, welcome to part two. I've gotten so many compliments about my color here. Thank you so much. This is one of my favorite colors, and I do like this shirt. I usually don't wear it with the sweater, but it's Michigan. It's winter. I have to be warm because I keep my thermostat so low. But I don't know if I had mentioned this earlier, and if I did, I'm sorry. I'm going to tell you again. But I've decided that for every week I did tell you this, but for every week I lose weight, I'm going to buy a new battery for my watch and get a new watch band. So I did bring a watch in today, and I didn't get I had to order the band because I wanted this color band like this that matches my Fitbit. And so the watch, I had to order the band, and so he said it'd probably be in Friday or Saturday. Because now that I'm losing weight, Denise was making fun of me. She says, does that mean you're going to do your hair and makeup and do your nails? No, that's not going to happen. Sophia used to say that all the time when she was little. Were you going to go to bed early? That's not going to happen. So we always say that all the time now. But anyway, I'm not a makeup person, and look at my hair, wash and go. And look at my nails. I don't do my nails. And you know what? I bite them, which is bad. And I can't tell you the last time I took clippers to my fingers, which is not something to brag about. But anyhow, but I do take clippers to my toes. Can you imagine just seeing me gnawing on my toes? Feet are the most disgusting part of a person's body. I cannot stand feet. The only feet I've ever touched are baby feet. Because even my kids, when their nails needed to be clipped, Jim had to do it. I just, it's like, their only purpose in life is just to get you from here to there. I just don't like feet. It's like, they're just, and people say, oh, I have pretty feet. No, all feet are ugly, in my opinion. I just don't like feet. But anyway, so back to, so my point is with my watches, I'm gonna get bands that match the different colors of the things I wear, because Jim got me a bunch of Fitbit bands. And so I have this one, and I have a white one, and I have a pink one, and I have a blue one, and I have a peach one, and I have a black one. So I'm gonna get watch bands that match, because I don't have it on right now. Wait a minute, let me show you the watch I usually wear. I'm back. Did you miss me? With every bullet. Jim and I say that a lot. It's only close in hand grenades and horseshoes. That's another saying we always say. But anyway, here's my watch. I don't know if you can tell. It's a Daffy Duck watch. And it was the first watch I got my battery in. So I wear this the most. But I took it off when I was going to get the other watch band, and I forgot to put it back on. So anyway, enough about my watches. But when I get them, I'll show them to you. Because I'm pretty proud of it. It's going to be 9 weeks this Saturday. I think so, because I'm doing pretty good. I do get a lot of requests about how I make my chicken. Unfortunately, when I tell you that I've done my chicken, I always say it's 0 points, and really in actuality, I should say that it's 1 or 2 points, because I'll show you how I do it. I take a piece of chicken. I always cook 2 breasts at the same time. And Jim doesn't eat chicken breast, so if Jim's going to eat like yesterday, he eats the leg and the thigh connected, whatever that's called, a quarter, the chicken quarter. And so I always make him that. But I always make 1 piece of chicken to eat for that day and another piece of chicken to eat the next day, whether for a salad or, you know, whatever. And all my clocks are going to start going off. The one music clock won't, because if it's dark, it doesn't go off. You didn't need to know that, but I shared it. So anyway, I take my 2 pieces of chicken, and this is a lot of salt. I hear you before you've even started. I hear you. But I drink a lot of water, because this is since breakfast, my 2nd glass of water. And it's not because, and I've had my sugar tested, so my sugar is fine. It's not that I'm thirsty, but I find that it keeps me regulated, if you know what I mean. And it just keeps me that I don't feel like I'm hungry, because I have to cut back on what I eat if I want to lose weight. But anyway, so then I salt both sides with this Lori seasoned salt. And then I salt, I know, a lot of salt, both sides with this garlic salt. And then I put, which I've just is this that I got from Hulissa. She does, her channel is Hulissa Does Stuff. And I sprinkle this on top too, which I'm going to have a cold piece of chicken tonight. And I'm still going to sprinkle a little bit of this on. I think it's 0 points, but I'm not sure. I should probably check it out, but I don't know. And then I just put a light sprinkling of breadcrumbs on the top. Not very much. If I was to measure it out on both chicken breasts, I would say it's probably a tablespoon, if that. And then I pour 2 tablespoons, 1 tablespoon over one chicken breast and 1 tablespoon over the other chicken breast. And I usually cook it in a Corningware pie dish. And I put aluminum foil over the top, and I put it in the oven at 350 for about 45 minutes. And then I test it with the thermometer, meat thermometer, and if it's like right around 160 degrees, because chicken cooked is 165, so when it's 160 degrees, then I take the foil off. I bake it at 350, I don't know if I told you that. But I take the foil off, I drain all the juices off of it, and just put it back in the oven for the last 10 or 15 minutes just to kind of give it a brown coating. But then I test it with the, usually it's cooked after 10 minutes, but you know, sometimes it might take a little bit longer depending on how big the chicken breast was. And that's how I make my chicken. Maybe sometime if I remember, I'll show you as I'm doing it, and like I said, a lot of salt. I know, but that's who I am. Okay, gonna start thinking about dinner. Okay, let's eat dinner. I have a piece of chicken left over from yesterday. So I have 17 smart points, 0 for my chicken, the cucumber, the tomato, and the mushrooms. I counted 2 points for the 2 tablespoons of Italian dressing I used when I cook it. 2 points for the 2 tablespoons of spinach artichoke dip, and 5 points for my pasta fagioli soup, and 9 points altogether. So I have 8 points left over. So there you go. And we've been having a problem with our microwave, and it hasn't been cooking right. And while I was cooking my pasta fagioli soup in the microwave, it started to spark, and there was a small little fire in the back of the microwave. So I was able to get my soup out and get the fire out, and I told you my house burned down. So guess what? We're not using that microwave anymore. I see a future trip to the appliance store to buy a new microwave. Well, thank you for letting me share my stories, because I do like to tell them. I've had more than one person in my life tell me I should write a book. I'm just not that talented, but I think I'm a fairly good storyteller. So, you know, even when my kids were little, I did read to them, but I think I told them more stories than I actually read from the book. I kind of embellished on the stories sometimes, but I always liked it. That's what I always do. So anyway, you seem to want to hear about my childhood. I had a very good childhood. I really did. I had fun. I was a tomboy. I got so many stories from my childhood, but let me think of one. We lived in Detroit. I grew up in Detroit. I lived there until 1986, and then we moved up this way because Jim's work, he was in construction, was towards this way. And it wasn't until we moved this way that everything went back south of Detroit, so he had to drive no matter what. But I loved living in Detroit. I really did. I have fond memories of living in Detroit. I know it gets a bad rap and that, but it's really a nice city. It really is. But anyway, we lived on a street called Rosemary, which was, if you're familiar with the area, it was an outer drive in Hayes. My house and only 2 other houses are the only ones left on the block. It's in a bad neighborhood right now, but it was a nice neighborhood when I was growing up. But we lived like the 3rd house from the corner, and my Aunt Rose lived the 3rd house from the, well, actually she was if you wanted to figure out, she was the 4th lot from the corner, because she had her house and then she owned the lot next to it where there was no house. And then in between my Aunt Rose's house and my mother's house, there was 3 houses. And the one was the Germans. We always called them the Germans, the German boys. And Hans and Nicholas were their names. But they were mean. They were really mean. Nobody wanted to play with them. And it was after the war, and so now I kind of understand the people in the neighborhood really didn't treat them very well, from what I could see as a child. And the only thing I can think of was because they were from Germany, and it was right after the war. My Uncle Hans came from Germany. He left just before the war started. I think he was 17 or 18 when he came. And he had a thick, thick accent. And he was treated very poorly, too. And I remember as a child that when we would go to his house, if we were to go to a park or something for a picnic, he wouldn't want to go. But if he did go, he never talked because his accent was so thick. But he was a good guy. I like my Uncle Hans. But anyway, so the house between my Aunt Rose and my mother's was Dan's house. And then the house next door to my Aunt Rose was Michaeline's house. And I was not allowed as a child to go to Dan's house or Michaeline's house. And my mother would never tell me. She'd just say, you are not to go to Dan's house or Michaeline's house. You are just not allowed. But if I wanted to go to see my Aunt Rose, I had to pass Dan's house. So I would always say, well, I'm going to go down and see Aunt Rose. Well, I didn't really want to go see Aunt Rose. I wanted to go to Dan's house because Dan had all the really neat stuff. He had like an archery thing set up in his, he had an extra lot too. That's why there's not so many houses left on the block, because there were a lot of the houses that had an extra lot next to them. But on his extra lot, he had like a little putt-putt thing that he set up that we could play a little putt-putt golf. He had an archery thing where we could shoot, you know, like not real arrows, but like with the little rubber tips arrows. And he had this mass collection of army men and things. Like I said, I was a tomboy, and I loved playing with all these little toys and stuff. But we weren't allowed to go there. And it wasn't until a couple of years after that that the reason we weren't allowed to go there is because they called it shell shock back then, because he kept reliving the war, and he ended up he killed his family. And my father had gone out for the night, and we had a babysitter, Judy Balo. She never was our babysitter again after that night, because the police came because he massacred his family, and she wanted to see what was going on. And so she brought me down there because I was awake and all the other ones were still asleep. And I watched them carry bodies out with the bloodstained, you know, it never bothered me. It never affected me. But when my mother found out that I had gone down there with Judy, Judy was no longer our babysitter. We got another babysitter. I don't even remember what her name was. I liked Judy, but maybe because she took me to the crime scene. Maybe that's why I'm so engrossed in horror and crime. I love reading a good crime story. I watch Criminal Minds and Law and Order. I watch all these. Now I know. It starts back to my childhood. Go figure. And anyway, and then the other place we liked to go to was Michaeline's house. So back then there was alleys, and you could walk down the alleys. They weren't like disgusting, but you know, like you could get from one house to another. So sometimes if I was going to go to Michaeline's house, I'd tell my mom I'm going to Aunt Rose's house. Boy, I was such a liar. Boy, no, not a liar, an embellisher. So anyway, we would go to Michaeline's house, and the reason we like going to Michaeline's house is because in her garage, she had everything. She had like pianos, pianos, and she had organs, and she had TV sets, not one, not two, not three, not four, a lot of TV sets. And back then, we didn't have a TV set, because that's, you know, that's hard to believe. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4 in my house now. When I was growing up, we didn't get our first TV till I was like 8 or 9. But she had all kinds of stuff. She had instruments. She had cars in the backyard. She had everything. Well, we found out that her dad was a fence. Not a good fence, not the fence that's around your house. The fence that sells all that stuff. And one time when we were at my Aunt Rose's house, we were in her backyard when they got raided. And boy, what a childhood I lived. No wonder I'm a wackadoodle. Now I know. It's just like I had such a weird childhood. But I could play with Michaeline, but we couldn't go in Michaeline's house or in her yard. But Michaeline could come and play down at the, you know, like we always played with Michaeline. She was a nice little girl, but her dad, not so much. Her dad went to jail. But I guess that's it. What a childhood I led, I guess. I had a good childhood, I really did. Between being poor and living my life on the side of crime. Well, I never lived a side of crime. But I enjoyed a life of crime, watching it unfold in front of me. Oh well, I gotta go. Enough of this silliness. Bye. See you in the morning.